The wild here doesn't whisper, it roars. Glaciers crack like thunder. Waterfalls carve paths through time. And in the middle of it all, she waits. Motor yacht Unbridled. A sanctuary of warmth and refinement in the heart of Alaska's untamed frontier. Bears wander the shoreline. Whales breach on the horizon. Seals nap on drifting ice while you sip champagne on the aft deck. This isn't a cruise, it's a calling, and only the bold will answer. Now booking your next unforgettable charter, yachtunbridled.com or through your preferred charter broker.
Top of the morning, afternoon, or evening, folks. It's Captain Liam here from Motor Yacht Unbridled. I've got the pleasure of Joey Meen join us today in today's Captain's Chat. Joey, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Liam. A pleasure to be here. I appreciate you offering me the opportunity to talk to you today.
No, we were just talking about how you kind of created the industry in a sense, and tell everyone a little bit about the kind of two hats you wear, or I'm sure you wear many hats, but the two kind of professional hats you wear.
Yeah, I've worn a few professional hats over my time, Liam, I have to say, but the current hats that I'm wearing, so I'm working with the International Association of Maritime Institutions. So they are my official employers, if you like. I work in the Superyacht department under their umbrella. We basically manage maritime education right across the disciplines. So that's what we're about. So our membership is wide and vast across the sort of global aspect of industries. The Superyacht being the one, obviously, as I say, that I'm involved in. I'm early days, as we were talking about just now, I was part of yacht qualifying panel with the Deck and Tech qualification routes. And in more recent years, I developed what we call the GUEST program, which is guidelines for excellence in super yacht training. And that's to pick up all the operational part of the roles on board. We started with the hospitality programs, and then we've extended into leadership, human resources, administrations, yacht financial management, mental health and well-being. We have a very specific course for that's very tailored to the industry because it's quite niche from the point of view of triggers and issues that we find our gorgeous crew having, and we want to be there to support them in the right ways. So this is what we've developed. So yeah, the suite of programs developed under GUEST, and we basically get a lot of providers who develop training, and then they come to us for the accreditation. And then we can do the accreditation through our internal processes.
Yeah, well, I'm blessed to meet the face behind the standard, because it really is, that's kind of what we're creating here in yachting. And everyone talks about the yachting standard, and kind of platforms like yourself really are the echelon of that. Especially kind of for that, you know, the whole industry. But when you talk about interior, you talk about leadership, talk about service. I had an article the other day I kind of read, and it talked about how the interior team on a yacht are more like the quarterbacks of a team, you know, of an American football team. And they're the ones that kind of have to get the result for the clients as much as everyone else. So it's good to see the industry equalizing the responsibilities between departments.
I think it's vital, though, Liam. I think it is absolutely vital to recognize that we used to say when we were setting guests up in the very early days that we have to look at the cohort on board as being three legs of a stool. You know, one leg goes, we all fall apart, and everybody has the exact same value of what they're bringing to the onboard environment. And the interior is also on top of that, the front line to the guests and owners pretty much most of the time. So, you know, there's a lot of skill sets that are needed there, and a lot of appreciation for the work they have to do.
Yeah, but to have those skill sets, you do need the standard, you need the training. And that's where I see the industry's finally starting to recognize that training. Over the last 5-10 years, I'm talking, when I say fine now. Now, it's not just this last year. It's been a lot of work you've done over the last kind of 20, 30 years, as you say, to build it. Then we talk about the Superyacht Alliance stuff. What's the core mission of the Superyacht Alliance? Because that's a non-for-profit.
It's not for profit, and actually it's very linked to the word standard. And I think this is where I kind of, I suppose, push to make changes through what I'm seeing with the education side. And you're right, there is more of an appetite, but we've got to stop doing this whole setting the bar to a minimum. And I think, the qualification routes that are required, the mandatory, and it's not minimum in as much as what's delivered isn't valuable. Of course, it's incredibly valuable. But when you look at all the roles and responsibilities of the crew on board, the operational requirements are very different to the seagoing requirements. And that's why we recognize that through guest. And the standards that we set for this, particularly through IAMI and the way that we operate, because obviously we're also obliged through the government routes, is looking at standards across the industry. And I mean, I've been talking to CBAS and other associations for many years about trying to set something where we can all work together to try and make improvements and changes. And I've always felt that those of us that have been in the industry so long, and I just admitted to you that it's nearly 40 years that I've been doing this. So yeah, showing my age. Well, you're just too sweet. But I think I feel very accountable for what's coming in the future. And I feel that we, as those of us that understand this industry from the beginning, can see how quickly it's grown. I mean, it is absolutely nuts how quickly this industry has grown. I remember back in anyway, let's not go back that far, but I do remember when it started, and it was, it was a very different atmosphere to what we have now. And because of the volume of boats, being launched, every boat that launches, there's a new layer of companies setting up, crew required. This is how the industry is constantly growing. And if we don't start making changes now, we're not going to see the issues that we're facing getting better. Nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to improve just because you've got more people and more volume. We've got to start really making some changes. So sorry, go ahead.
That's what I was just saying on that one point, though. I think the biggest problem I'm kind of seeing, from an outside, I've got 25 years at sea and I love what I do and I go to sea for a living. That's my own. That's my place outside my family. So I see it from that perspective. And what I see is so many companies, so many people, so many organizations coming out. How do we unify that? And that's where I see Superyacht Alliance and I Am a Guest, and that's where we've connected through Caroline. Because when too many people go too many different directions, we don't actually accomplish anything.
Yeah, and this is what we were starting to see, right? It was just that there's all these different organizations. And this is what we've really done with the Alliance. So we've got what I would say the core associations together, and they represent pretty much 360 vision of this industry, right? We've got the shipbuilders, you've got the charter brokers, NIBA, IYBA, we've got Amex over in Australia, we've got PYA, ICOMIA. I mean, that's an enormous group of organizations. We've got IAMI now as well, and CBAS. So if you think about it, we just basically got together and said pretty much, let's just dump our garbage in the middle and talk about what's going on here, because we have all got the same issues, but we're all looking at it and tackling it from different angles. So if we start looking at what the problems are and we start addressing those and challenging each other on where things are going wrong, and actually where things are going right, because we have to learn the right lessons as well. So it's all about looking at the bigger picture and looking at it from a far more broader reach than just our own channeled expert areas of expertise. So this is what we did. So we basically a couple of years ago all got together. The right people are in the right place at the right time. This is how I'm feeling about it. And since then, we've created think tanks. We've got Raising the Bar think tank around retention, recruitment, HR practices. We've got Changing Tack, which is changing tack on crew welfare. We've got organizations such as iSwan involved, Seafarers Charity, UKSA. So we've got big players in here that are working together to bring as much influence from outside in. And the platform is there. Anyone can come in and join any of them. It is totally inclusive. We have onboard safe operations where we've got organizations like CHIRP, members of ISS involved in that. We've got a lot of captains and crew involved in this group as well, trying to look at the actual safety issues that are faced with the onboard ops, and that includes as much anything, the human element, as well as sort of everything that's linked to that. We've got the bridge between, so they're the crew management companies, the large group of crew management companies that have come together again, anyone is welcome to join this. And then looking at the onboarding and HR practices and where that gap is between, crew being employed, and then how that journey of employment is, and where the responsibility lies with, ensuring and safeguarding crew in their employment. And then we've also got the group that Caroline and Karina are heading up. I'm calling them at the moment the Crew Workplace Culture Group. I know they have a slightly different name at the moment, but that's a very large group of enthusiastic and very passionate and knowledgeable people. And we're hoping that this group can then start working more on the behaviours and the autonomy of reporting and how we can support crew in that environment. So and the think tanks, we've got open doors for other think tanks. Each think tank has working groups. So we've got lots of activities going on where we're really pinning down certain topics and focus groups to work on certain areas. We've already started building code of ethics, for example, with recruitment companies. We've got an image for the industry for new people coming in, a whole load of resources that are being developed at the moment for how to get into the industry. Obviously, through changing tack, there's resources for well-being and welfare and mental health. It's very exciting times. Very, very exciting.
Yeah, it's quite amazing. Kind of like United Nations of yachting, per se. That'd be a nice way to put it, with all the different members to try and make positive change.
Yeah, and I think it really kind of is. I mean, we're very aware as the Alliance board that we have a representation for our own membership, so there's likely to be conflict of interest. So the best way of doing this is to have the operations of the Alliance working through these think tanks. So there's autonomy there. There's an opportunity for industry just to open and be honest and transparent. So we can basically come back down to how do we change things and where are the standards and the changes needed. And this is what we're basically working on. Yeah.
So what's the biggest challenges then? And I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to start with saying people like myself, those captains out there. Yeah, I'll be difficult. I like having uncomfortable conversations, believe it or not. I kind of encourage crew to have that because I think we grow in that space. And I see so many of these yachts operate under an independent, sometimes egotistical, sometimes positive environment. So how do we create these action items, and what's the biggest barriers you see for widespread adoption of the standardization of training and professionalism on board?
Well, yeah, I mean, there are a few barriers there for sure, Liam, and I think, as you quite rightly say, there's a quite a range, isn't there, that we see of behaviours and operations with yachts. And one captain will go on a vessel and change the whole operations of it because this isn't how they do it, and this is how they've always done it. And it doesn't mean that one's right or wrong. It's just a change of environment, and it takes time for crew potentially to adapt to that change as well. So there's always a little bit of resistance. There's always resistance to change. So that's actually going to be the biggest battle, is to get the buy-in from the industry to say there's going to be a few changes coming, but people just need to trust what we're doing, and if there's any concerns, join what we're doing. So there's everybody gets a chance to have a voice and an influence. But I think the biggest barriers we've got really and it is linked to education, I think, is that there's just such a different level of where people have either invested in themselves or they haven't. And those that have invested in themselves, whether it's through leadership, whether it's through any professional development, are obviously going to benefit. And that means that the ripple effect is going to benefit those on board and those that they work with, and also people they communicate with in all different areas. It's, contractors, owners, is having that language skill and that negotiation skill and the communication, and that all comes back down to training and the right leadership training as well. So I think that is definitely something we're seeing as a pinch point, because it's not, there's a very varying different levels and degrees of how people are leading.
They are barriers. They are barriers, realistically. And I always try and say to people, take the people out of the problem. Try to take the people out of the problem, and that kind of gives more clarity to what the problem is. Is it a scheduling issue? Is it a resource issue? Is it a retention issue? What is the problem? And then let's. Yeah. And sometimes it is the people that are the problem. So we talk about the barriers. I've got this saying: if it can't be measured, it can't be managed. So when you talk about accountability, how do we then go on to say, how do you measure standard?
Well, I think it's a really good point, and we've actually just recently, at the end of sort of this summer, we've got it through. We've managed to get quite a substantial sum of Erasmus funding, so that's the EU funding, to create a superyacht qualifications framework.
Okay.
And that's in education. So we've also currently, I told you I was busy. We've got various teams now working to create an entire qualifications framework. And to do that, we have to start with identifying each individual position right across the board. So we've got one team working on shipyards, one team working on service, one team working on crew. The crew is reasonably easy because there's certain required qualifications there, but we're working on the benchmark of operations, the actual operational side of things, and that's right across the board. I think we've pinpointed about 150 plus professions in our industry already. So within that, I know it's a lot. You wouldn't believe how many there actually are. It's quite a shock to me too when we went through this list. And each one, we're now identifying the role and responsibilities, what attributes and skills, what qualifications they may need, how that individual will work in that environment. So whether it's training on the job, whether it's vocational, whether it's prior learning. So we're looking at this. We're identifying qualifications and training that's already existing, because it's important to recognize what's already out there. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. And then also pinpoint areas where maybe there's better support or more support needed, where we could then develop training around it. So this is literally right across the whole industry. That framework, which hopefully will be done in a couple of years' time, I think we've got 2.5 years to get this across the board, to get the Erasmus funding for all the parties involved in creating this. Will then be a framework for this industry to use. And this framework is where we start from, Liam, because once we've identified that, firstly, we're creating a professional environment within our industry. There's an easy route for people on the outside to say, if I want to become, then I need to do this or have these skills. Within the industry, it's creating a whole load of new opportunities from a ship to shore point of view for career opportunities, pre-planning. You can plan a few years ahead to get to that position where you want to go. And likewise, internally, the shore to shore routes as well. So it's giving this industry a structure, and it becomes a professional environment. And if you look at any other environment, whether it's aviation or anything else, there is a very set structured framework of qualifications within that entire industry. So this is where we're starting from. So this is already, if we've kicked this off already for a few months now.
Well, that's really exciting because, so many, back, say, 15, 20 years ago, I started 25 years ago in Fort Lauderdale, and so many people back at those times, I'm just going to do it for a couple of years, earn some money and go home. And crew sometimes think like that, but the more and more in the last kind of 5, 10 years, you see people realize that this is a career, it is an industry, and then people like yourselves, that ship-to-shore connection is one of the strongest things we need to kind of focus on, because people can't kind of do the distance away from the family, or if they want to start a family, they need that kind of understanding of there is a relationship available ashore professionally that they can move into. So it's exciting times in the industry. I really think it is. I've kind of got into this a year ago about this social media and these captains chats because it's my time to give back. I've done a lot in my career. I'm very blessed, all the wonderful places I've seen. But then when I hear these tragedies, like Paige Bell or the incident in St. Bart's with the loon tender and these many other incidences that happen in yachting that affect the crew's mental health, that's when the industry needs to really stand up and say, how do we take actionable items for accountability? And that's kind of the question. We talk about standardization. What are the actionable items for accountability that people can take in your eyes because you see the whole thing as the big picture, and that's beautiful.
Yeah. I think it's, again, it's, our industry was built on a sort of make it up as you go along culture. And I think this is one of the biggest issues that we face, because while there are standards and there are guidelines in place, we're not all following them, and we need to identify why. And I think many of the reasons as to why is because our industry doesn't operate that way. So we need to now challenge those standards and guidelines and change that. And I think when you've got issues on board, as you've mentioned, serious incidents going on, there isn't a clear-cut route for reporting. There isn't autonomous route for reporting. There's a lot of ambiguity around who do I report to, because are they on my side or are they on the owner's side? Are they on? And I think this is where there's slightly murky waters, and this is what we need to also clear up. We need to challenge where those standards and guidelines are and create, obviously, standards that would fit with our industry so we can operate in a safe environment that's going to give that clarity to crew to know where to report to, people understand where they stand in a situation, and who is accountable and who is responsible for that. I think this is definitely something that needs clarification. One of the sessions that we ran, for example, at the Superyacht Forum. So the Alliance board members are also the content board for the Superyacht Forum in Amsterdam in the Mets, during Mets. So we create the content for those 2 days, and we do it again with all the organizations we work with. It's a very open option. But one of the sessions we ran this year was something that I pushed for, called towards the unified code, unified code from the operational perspective. And this is something, again, that all the work that's going on at the moment ultimately is going to land on: do we create something that's an industry standard, or do we then go to regulators and make it something more tangible, if you like, and it can go through something that's more through flag states or higher. So this is the challenge that we're going to be heading towards. And I think once we can address that, and once we've really pinpointed why what we've got now doesn't work, and what we haven't got that we need that can then work, and once you've identified all of this, and we can put the white papers together and the recommendations together, we can then go and have some really serious conversations with the people that can make the changes. And if they don't, then we try and look to make industry standards across the board. And this is something that does need to be brought in by every organization and people and the people working in the industry.
True, because I do want to reinforce to all the crew out there and all the industry that there is the framework does exist for accountability. I mean, there is a Marine Accident Investigation Bureau, there is DPAs, there is flag states, there is local authorities. So the framework exists. I think it's a lot of the people need the faith in it, and they need to engage in it and not be afraid. And I think that's a positive step in the right direction, in addition to the amazing steps that you and the team at Superyacht Alliance are doing. Crew need to take responsibility themselves for what they see around them and the behaviors they see around them. Because in the most recent journey I've had, I do this check-in Tuesday, and it's horrible, the emails and the messages I'm getting now of people in situations. And I obviously deflect them to professionals because I'm not one of those. I go to sea for a living. If you want to learn about navigation, I'm the person. But if you need professional help and support, then we direct you to Ice One or any of these organizations that you mentioned. So it's really tough, but I think we're going down the right path. One of the huge victories I think I see right now is from January 2026, the PSSR includes sexual harassment and training has now come out, and I see all the links for training. But I've now the crew to say, crew, this is a must. Let's start January 1st. Let's all book our course.
Yeah, but and it's brilliant, and I'm really pleased to see that that's in there. I do feel that there should be more, because I always think that when we look at STCW training, my personal feeling on this is very much that it's a minimum requirement, it's a minimum standard, and all industries really should then again take responsibility to upskill in areas that along those routes, but to upskill in the areas that actually impact the operations in our discipline, in our environment, which in this case is super yachts. And I also think that there will be many people who, obviously, you don't need to refresh your PSSR. So everybody that's already got their PSSR, it's very unlikely they're going to go back and do it again for this. So I would urge everybody to start either taking that or other courses that are similar along the same vein. So you understand what's being taught to the generation starting their first journey on their first STCW PSSR course, because you only have to do it the very first time. So, I think there's going to be a gap in knowledge and appreciation of the output of that course if people don't engage and go back and say, right, actually, I want to learn about this. So my message would be do that, because then you'll firstly understand what's been taught, and secondly, surely you're going to benefit from that training.
Exactly. I think there is a short course of £35 that you can do, which is that add-on.
Yeah, the add-on. Yeah.
And I was like, so I'll encourage my crew on board to do it. We're going to register for it. But I want to touch on two more things if you've got time. You got another couple of minutes?
I've got as much time as you want. Yes.
Because this is for me, it's huge, because it's the oversight that people don't see. And what you don't know, you don't know. So when people listen to this and they understand what you're doing from a bigger picture and see the face behind the Superyacht Alliance and I'm a guest, they get more faith in and more trust in their abilities. And the results is what I go for. And I'm very guest centric. So I'm in face of these guests and the ultra high, net worth individuals. Our goal in the industry is to give them such a unique experience that they can't find anywhere else in the world, that then supports this whole industry, because that's where it comes from fiscally. So from their point of view, there's big trends in wellness. There's big movements in crew mental health and wellness. Where do you see that coming in, kind of looking ahead 2, 4, 5, 10 years in terms of training? Because we just can't put a masseuse on board and say, tick the box of wellness, or have access to a psychotherapist and say, tick the box for mental health. How do you see that big kind of, thing to wrestle?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's going to obviously be a lot of conversations around that, because it is an issue. And I think for me, a lot of it is down to the narrative that starts the owner's journey in their experience of having a boat. I think, we need to again shift that culture of it's trying to encourage them to save money, for example, or we can get you the best deal on this, and we can save you money on this, and the crew budgets, we can cut this down to save money. And I think the narrative in the industry needs to change right from the very beginning, when an owner first starts making any noises towards wanting to have their own boat, whether it's in a new build or buying a secondhand boat. But it's let's change that narrative to say, you're going to have the safest boat. We're going to guarantee you're going to have the safest boat. And these are the reasons why. And actually things like mental health, well-being, protection of your crew, let alone protection of the owner and his family and his assets. I think if we can change that narrative right from the very beginning, right across the industry, from sales to yards to brokerage, where we're selling them the safest environment they can possibly buy. And to me, that then is something that surely is going to firstly attract the right owners into the industry. Yeah. So I think that is an issue. We have varying different expectations from owners and demands from owners that, again, doesn't help the situations. But also I think those that have yachts are going to feel far more appreciated. I bet you if you asked any owner or every owner whether they felt that their crew were trained enough, or where they think the pinch points are, they wouldn't have a clue what's going on behind doors. And I think if they really truly realized what was happening, they would be probably quite shocked. So to me, it's about the industry again taking accountability, being responsible, and actually selling that transparent dream to the owner to say, no, we're going to make sure your boat's the safest thing that's out there, and this is what we've got to do to get to that. Make that the exciting journey, not cutting costs on crew budgets, or not giving crew training budgets or time off to be able to invest in themselves on professional development. That should just be built into the culture of owning a yacht at a safe environment.
And contractually as well, like crew retention policies. What is the vessel's crew retention policy? What is your continuing education policy? What is your wellness policy? What is your access to mental health? These are key questions that crew to ask.
Yeah, but they should be the norm. Graham. And this is where we're really falling down, because the norm isn't being talked about. It's not normalized. It's not the vocabulary, and the talk that's talked is never around that. It's always around what we can save you on, and how we can cut a corner here, or how we can get you out there quickest. It's like we've got to change. The only way, when we're not going to be able to send owners to school, right? I mean, we're not going to see that anytime soon. So the only way we can educate is through the systems, through the way, the process that it works.
Yeah.
The aviation industry wouldn't turn around and say, sorry, no, we or yes, we can do anything you like with compromising safety. It doesn't work that way. We shouldn't work that way either.
No, you're all right. And there is, that is a sad side of the industry. And firsthand, I know the experience. I've had conversations with owners and management companies about decisions of whether it's servicing a crane or things like crew budgets or training allowances, or for me one of the biggest one is environmental sustainability or environmental accountability. What are we doing for the environment from an individual super yacht perspective? What portion of our budget is allocated to giving back, whether it's through organizations kind of like the yacht offset or yacht carbon offset? That's wonderful work. That's a minimum. You know what I mean? What else are we doing to help companies like Seakeepers and many of the other maritime organizations that look after environment? That's where I struggle as an active captain. I'm like, when I look at a budget of 100%, I'm like, can we please just put like 1% to the environment, 1% crew mental health, 1% to kind of, and then I look at charters that come in and brokers and people getting 10s and 15% and 5%. And I'm like, just one for my arcs and my poor turtles out there. I'm not asking.
It is, but it's so vital that this happens. We're actually working. So IAMI is working, and it's an alliance driven project. But we're working with the Water Revolution Foundation, and we're building a program of sustainability courses. So we're having a practitioner one for all crew on board. And again, it'll just be a short course, but it will be an awareness course. And it's based on the crew sustainability guidelines that were created a few years ago that Water Revolution Foundation headed up.
Yeah.
And we're looking at building a sustainability officer. So we would like to see an officer on board that's actually done this course, that is then responsible for managing certain influences and practices on board that every yacht should have. And we're looking as the Alliance to register those officers in a professional register to say, no, these guys and girls have done this course. They're actually out there operating, and these are the yachts they're operating. And we want to show that value and highlight those that are doing the right thing. But we're also developing an advisory course, and that's for all the owner reps and the management side of things, so that narrative, again, that's going to owners right at the offset is going to also be sustainability driven. And that's the big course that we're working on at the moment with them. And then also a couple of other courses as well that's linked to that, that's further up the chain, if you like, with or from the beginning with the yards and the build, and also with the Yeti as well. So yeah, there's quite a lot of activity around the education side of that, which I think will help. I hope will help.
Well, help at both ends. The education really helps and it sets the foundation, but in the end, I think the money has to come from the top down, and we have to allocate that through management companies and different people who have influence in the industry to try and make sure that it's done. Because a lot of times I feel like an old kind of, not hippie, but I'm like, okay, crew, remember no plastic bags. Remember, no plastic bottles are coming on the yacht. Full stop. None. And it's like a hard no for me. And then we have the shipboard energy efficiency management plan. And I take it seriously. It's like, okay, crew, close the curtains. What is our power consumption this month? Why are we consuming so much power? Like, these are the questions I ask actively. I sometimes say broken record, and I'm like, come on, crew, like, this is my little bit. They're all wonderful people, but I need to do my bit for the ocean, Yeah.
But it sounds to me, Liam, like you're doing a lot more than just a little bit with, advocating that attitude on board is well, it's commendable, and I think it's absolutely the right way to be, and I think it's hopefully going to be the way we will all behave in the future.
Yeah. Same as mental health. A lot of times I'll ask different crew and people in the industry, would you rather talk about it, or would you rather go for a walk or a fish? And sometimes they go, would you rather go for a walk or a fish? I'm like, that's fine. And then we can talk about it. Or who wants to sign up for the mental health first aid course? That, it's a great course. And a lot of crew are like, no, I'm not interested. I'm like, cool. what if you get a day off? Are you interested then? Like, let's work this out because we have to improve. You have to have these uncomfortable conversations to become.
Yeah.
So finally, I know you're a really busy person. I'm so grateful. I know it's a sunny day over there, so I'm going to get you a bit more sunshine. Digitalization of certifications and badges and AI, kind of what's your kind of take on all that and where you see the future going?
Well, we are all the qualifications now that are issued through IAMI, which includes the qualifications we issue on behalf of MCA and the guest program, are all e-certificates. They're all digitalized. We believe this is absolutely the right way to go. I think it's also actually easier for crew to manage their qualifications in that way. There's all sorts of different apps out there you can store your qualifications in. So I don't think that this is going to be an issue. Who needs to be plugging around with bags of paper? I mean, that doesn't, that's not the world we live in now, right? So yeah, that is something. And I think my army now have got are developing a new system for MCA. So they're MCA modernizing all their qualifications and the training. And that includes the super yacht side of qualifications. And that also is linked to where IAMI sits because we do all their assessments and certification. So we're digitalizing everything. So there's going to be a lot more digitalized type assessments where it'll be various types. So we're getting away from that pen, paper, written exam. And we're going into more digital environments from activities and assignments. And so it's going to be a very different environment for the learning and also the assessments and then the certification from that. So this is something that IAMI are currently working on. And that's right across all the maritime disciplines that we're doing that with MCA for. So that's another couple of years worth of work that we're heading straight into for some change. But the first lot of training will be coming out in April, but that won't be for the yacht sector. That will come a little bit later. But watch this space. There's some changes coming to the assessment processes for all the MCA yacht qualifications. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. I mean, it does start a training. That's why I always encourage crew. Our season's coming up in Alaska next year, and I've kind of allocated 2 weeks in February, I think it is, for just training. And the crew are like, what are we doing? I'm like, we're doing everything from self-defense to this PSSR, sexual assault and bullying. Like, we don't have these problems on board, Captain. I said, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if we have the problems or not. We have to protect ourselves and protect our problem, protect the potential of the problem. So I know the one they're not looking forward to is the clean up the beach in the middle of a Seattle winter, but that's my one. That's my one. All right, guys, put the raincoats on, rain halos on.
Raincoats and hot chocolate, they'll be fine.
There you go, hot chocolate. It's got a one. Well, I really thank you for your time. I thank you for everything you've done in the industry. It's really insightful. Once again, you've created a standard, and that's where we can be measured against. And I implore all crew to engage, whether you're a head of department or a junior crew, things like the Super Yacht Forum, things like the IAMI guest programs and accreditation. I think that's where it starts. And I'm honored to have you on board.
Oh, well, Liam, I'm really grateful to be here. And as I said earlier, everything that we're doing through the Alliance is an open door. This is 100% inclusive. We want people who have got passion, who want to help to make a change, to get in touch and be part of, even if it's just helping on a work group for a few hours here and there. Every little bit will help, and everybody's expertise will be valued, and everybody has the chance to have a voice and be part of the change. So, that there's no closed doors here. The whole point of this is providing a platform for us all to get this industry where it should be, right?
And how can crew do that? What's the best way to get a hold of you or to join?
It's an interesting question because the Alliance, we've been so busy doing things. We haven't really done much yet on our sort of PR and marketing or social media. We will be doing some stuff over the new year. And we will be getting a little bit more sort of momentum going. We might even work with you guys on this, but try and get some momentum going with some reach out and some reporting as well, because I think that's important. To be fair, if you look up my LinkedIn, if you come by me for the moment, then I will put you in the direction of the right think tank and the right people involved. That's probably the best way to do it. Yeah.
And you've got superyachtalliance.org. I see you can register for Raising the Bar as well on your website.
You can.
There's plenty of ways to do it, but LinkedIn's the best, and I'll put that below. Thank you once again for your time. I appreciate it. Be safe, be blessed, and look after yourself.
If your brand belongs in the heart of the yachting world, this is where it happens. Yachting International Radio reaches over 1 million yachting professionals and enthusiasts every month, with 77 million impressions, 220,000 social followers, and 74,000 podcast subscribers. Our hosts are insiders, crew, captains, CEOs, trusted voices shaping the industry. This is targeted, high-impact advertising in a luxury niche. Visit yachtinginternationalradio.com/advertise. Your audience is already listening.